Sego, Sewaguego. Greetings, everyone. It's nice to be here this evening. Watwanualado. Welcome everyone. We're going to be having a beautiful night with lots of things to think about. Santi Smita Golunyakwa, Nyungyats, Gayangihaga, Niwagahotsoda, Wagenyata, Oswega, Nidwageno. My name is Santi Smith. I am from Oswego, which is also known as Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. I'm Gayangihaga Turtle Clan, and I'm happy to be here as Chancellor of McMaster University in my second term. I'm also happy to be an alumna of McMaster University, and very dear to my heart, a place that's very close to Oswego and lots of connections with Indigenous studies, and also my degree in kinesiology, but before it was physical education and psychology. I'm going to give a little bit of words before we start, and then we're going to have beautiful speakers coming to share their words with you. I wanted to think about having us come together with our minds and our hearts, and what we do is when we're thinking and speaking, it's not only our intellect, it's also our bodies, our hearts that we want to unite, and that's one of the founding principles of our Ongwahoi people, is that we come together with our mind and our heart in unity, and that's really important in every aspect of our lives. I know McMaster will be sharing the Thanksgiving address, which will frame that understanding of how we are interconnected, we are interdependent, and that as human beings, as Ongwe Su'a, we are here to take care of the environment, to be responsible peacekeepers and life sustainers, so that we promote balance, which we would call skana, and peace. And we are also forward thinking into the next generations. What we do now to the environment, what the decisions that we make now will affect the next generations to come. And that's fundamental understanding within our Ongwahoi philosophy, that we are here for a short time to share our gifts, to make the world a better place, and to leave with out disturbing, but to make sure that everything in the natural living universe is pristine as it was when we were here, when we first found and lived and thrived in this land. So with that, I think this important conference about looking forward into the future is very timely. It's something that our ancestors did forever. And when I speak, I also like to acknowledge my ancestors who were forward thinking for me, and that's the reason why I'm here in the work that I'm doing and sharing. My great-grandmother on my mother's side was a clan mother, a midwife, a gardener, a farmer, and the ultimate life sustainer. So when I'm speaking and when I'm doing my work, I think of her and her legacy and the dreams and wishes she had for our community as a life sustainer. I also think of my maternal grandmother, Elda Bunn Smith, on my father's side, my paternal side, was a creative individual, and she revived the lost art of pottery making in our community by studying fractured shards in museums and using her creativity to bring that ancient knowledge and fractured knowledge into a new form. Again, forward thinking, using creativity, using the ideas and concepts from our ancestors and bringing that forward in the present, but also then impacting the future. She went on to teach many people in our community pottery, and as a result, my parents and myself as well, and my daughter as well, is doing pottery, and I share that as well. So I feel like I'd like to acknowledge our ancestors. I'd like us all to acknowledge our ancestors and where we've come from, and the gifts that they have and the wishes that they've had for us as we move forward. And then when we think about our legacy, what we bring into this world through our creativity, through our mind and heart, how that will carry through the generations. So that's a big responsibility, and it's not something to be burdened with. It's a part of being human. For us, it's a part of being Ongwe Hoe, that interconnection that we have. And for a lot of the work that I do now in particular, I look to our fundamental understandings of how to live and move in the world. And one of the words that I'd like to share is Gansant Stansa Lagoa Sa'oyela. And this is how we would say nature. It's immense movement in the direction of forever, in the direction of creation. And so that frames everything that I do in terms of my creative work and even how I try to run my organization, Gahawi Dance Theater, and what I share with people in my work is how do we align with Gansant Stonsla Sa'oyela? How do we align with that natural law, those natural forces to make innovative, creative buildings, organizations, creative work, stories, songs. And there's a lot of work that's very ancient knowledge and bringing that into the present and then sending that forward into the future. So Gansant Statsla Goa is something that I work with a lot, and I would like to offer that as something to think about over the discussions of what you're offering to the next generations looking forward, how we are aligning, how are we coming into balance, skana. And skana, again, is another fundamental philosophy of Angwahoe people and many indigenous nations across the world is how do we live in balance? And what promotes balance through singing, dance, our creations, our work, our relationships, and our interconnections. I would like to, before I introduce Makasha Looking Horse, I would like to share a song with you. These are sounds within our language, and it is also just a way, an offering for you, for us to hear and just to open your awareness, open your minds, and open your hearts through the energy. So those are vocable sounds. I'm used to singing with my daughter. We usually sing as a duo, so I'm missing her with me today. But the last word I said is onega, and onega means water. And oneganos is the waters. And tonight I think we're going to be talking a lot about water and the importance of water. And water is life. Water sustains us. We are water. And we come from water. We come from the waters is our first environment. And many traditional midwives like Kaji Cook have talked about our first environment, that we do come from the waters. And that's important that we acknowledge where we come from and whose waters we come from moving forward. So with that, I'm happy to invite Makasha Looking Horse to come and speak with you. And she's a young woman, Angwahoe, from 6 nations who is doing incredible work and will continue to be doing incredible work. So.
Sego Soragwego, Makashin Gets, Genegahaga New Agahunjode, Deh New Lakota, the Wakatuhuni, Six Nations Nidawageno. Hi everybody, my name is Makasha Looking Horse. I am Mohawk, Wolf Clan, and Lakota from Six Nations territory. I'm also the Indigenous Restoration Coordinator here at McMaster, under Nature at McMaster. And I'm also the youth leader for the Indigenous Water is Life Research Project that is also based out of McMaster. And also a student. But I'm gonna do the opening for everybody here today. And the opening is how we are all supposed to start our day off, is giving thanks to all creation. And that's including the trees and the grass and the winds and all the way up to the sun and the moon. So I'm going to start our Thanksgiving address. Ne ona ganto ni gancho goda, swadahotsioste, wakali hoyandakwe ondotne, ne endali wadihento, sangwaya diso, sangwawe negano waladunsla, ne iowezo aguego scano adido atonio, ne garine endawalhage, nyale eska, endawayo ne aguatnigula, eska g endawadenu walados, etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. De atino walados ne yati sota asuntaneka galakwa etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. De atino walados ne gonjo sua etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. De atino walados ne oneganos etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. De atino walados ne yajistok bolonio etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. De atino walados ne gaeli ni anguedage etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. De atino walados ne yati ne yojit jizo etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. De atino walados ne Gundilio, etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. De atino walado ne ohande sua, etogarinai dohage ni aguatnigula. Dunchino wanu walados ne sungwaya diso, eto atane ale, wakadali wakweni, doga teno, asagetni goha, ize ne, aswakwadago, dahnu aizolo asbi ahoge, atoni awonage, to. Nyawe, everybody.
Scano, good evening. So that was my daughter. Santi and I know what it's like to work with our daughters. It's a lot of fun. I would recommend it. Also, can you tell that Haudenosaunee are matrilineal people? And I think we're changing Mac into matrilinealism. Thank you, Santi, for that beautiful song. I'd just like to welcome everybody here as the chair of the Indigenous Education Council. We are part of the President's Committee, and we've been doing this work to advance Indigenous ways of knowing and being at McMaster for some 30 years. Chancellor Smith, who we are incredibly proud of. I'm so happy you sang that song. It's one of my favorite. And Makasha, I had a feeling that PowerPoint was PowerPoints and prayers just don't go together. So, but I also just wanted people to understand how beautiful those words really are in giving thanks to all things, reminding us to acknowledge all the gifts the Creator gave us, and more importantly, the responsibilities that we have to care for all of the natural world and beings, to bring our minds together for the good of each other and the good of the natural world. McMaster has been working in partnership with the local Indigenous communities for over 30 years. And when institutions make that effort to build relationships with Indigenous people and communities, everybody benefits. This is Dish with One Spoon territory. The explanation I'll pass on to you is from Rick Hill, one of our prominent and respected Haudenosaunee historians. This was made pre-contact with the Anishinaabe peoples, which I thought was appropriate for Autumn tonight, but also neutral, Peyton, Erie, and many others. It is probably, according to Rick Hill, the most significant in terms of the Indigenous people of this land. The old people say this represents the first treaty ever made in the Americas. It was made between all Native nations before Europeans arrived. It's a simple belt with a field of white that represents peace and unity and harmony, with a little dark figure in the middle that represents the bowl. Of particular importance is the age of environmental degradation today. This is in fact the Dish with One Spoon, also a covenant that we hold with nature. Here is the great dish, and inside the dish are all the plants, all the animals, all the things we just gave thanks to. We hold these gifts together, and we need all of it to be healthy and happy. So there's 3 basic rules. Only take what you need. Secondly, you're always to leave something for someone in the dish for everyone to enjoy, including leaving the dish there, and you're to keep the dish clean. That was the treaty between us, between our neighbors and allies, and between nature. And then the treaty between us has survived to be talked about today. Our ancestors were thinking about all of us. These profound wisdoms our ancestors passed on to us is critically important to acknowledge for sustainability. It makes perfect sense that the Future of Canada project and the delegates for the Imagining 2080 Forum would meet here in Dish with One Spoon territory. Another beautiful wisdom left by our ancestors passed to us by the Great Law of Peace, to take care with all of our decisions by considering how these actions will affect the 7th generation. In other words, they thought about us, my ancestors. I know that they prayed about this generation. So thinking about 2080, I am sure they will be grateful to you for thinking about that generation. Autumn is one of the young people who is understood as what we consider a 7th generation prophecy. Our elders told us about these young people, these young, beautiful people that were going to rise and bring the wisdom of our ancestors forward. And we believe that this is this generation. My generation simply paved the way so that their voices and their work could be done. So it's important to understand with our prophecies and our beliefs that Autumn is a clear indication that you're on the right path by having her passion for water, her work with water, which is all very close to my heart as the leader of the Indigenous project, that we care deeply about what is our life sustainer, as Santi so poignantly pointed out. It is the first environment of all humans. So McMaster's support of this research, of Indigenous people, Indigenous studies, faculty, students, and their outreach with our communities, not only transformed the space here at McMaster, but it transformed my own community. And if you were to visit Six Nations, whether you go to the health services or to Six Nations Polytechnic, every place you went, McMaster, either alumni are there, leadership is there, work, research that we've done is there. We've transformed each other, and that is the beauty of reconciliation. I'm looking forward to listening to the next generation of wise young Indigenous women leading the way towards a brighter future of inclusion, of highlighting our importance of our natural world and sustainability, and that these young Indigenous visionaries are heard and their words are heeded by very important people who can help us all achieve a future for the next 7 generations. With that, I'll pass it on to Pamela Svet, Dean of Faculty of Humanities and Academic Lead, Future of Canada Project. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to offer a very warm thank you, first of all, to Chancellor Smith, Makasha Lookinghorse, and Professor Don Martin Hill for welcoming all of us this evening to their land. As the first settler to speak tonight, I do want to recognize and acknowledge that McMaster University is located on the traditional territories of the Mississauga and Haudenosaunee nations. But I won't go into the covenant, the dish with one spoon wampum agreement, because Professor Martin Hill has already done such a beautiful job. But I do just want to at least acknowledge where we are and to acknowledge for myself that I'm grateful to live and work in this region. In my role as Dean of Humanities at McMaster, I'm involved in a number of different initiatives. But tonight is really special for me because it brings together two of the big efforts of the last few years, the Future of Canada project and the Wilson College for Leadership and Civic Engagement. Wilson College launched last year following a generous donation from L.R. Red Wilson, Chancellor Emeritus, and a great friend to McMaster. Some of you will have seen his name on the sign for this building. This is L.R. Wilson Hall. The college is focused on educating the next generation of Canada's civic leaders, as well as advancing research in civic studies and forging deeper communities between our campus and our local and national communities. Wilson College is sponsoring tonight's event and the reception, which is the kickoff to our two-day forum, Imagining 2080, a forum on Canada's futures. The forum is the continuation of a 3-year project to examine and imagine where Canada is going. And for those of you, if you ever have the opportunity to sit down with Red Wilson, he will talk about this. We need to think about where Canada is headed. And since its inception in 2020, the Future of Canada project has sought to do just that, to better understand the issues and opportunities facing Canada. Thanks to a generous gift by, you guessed it, Red Wilson, the project has been supporting multidisciplinary, future-focused research that contributes to the development of a better Canada, one that is more equitable, sustainable, resilient, and prosperous. In addition to academic research, the Future of Canada project also supports an inaugural class of future fellows from across the country, whose individual projects all encourage further thinking about Canada's future. These fellows are with us this week, and you'll be hearing from some of them over the course of the next couple of days, and their work gives me great hope for the future of our country. By bringing you all together in this forum, McMaster and the Future of Canada project hope to provide a space for leaders across sectors and disciplines to imagine the possibilities for Canada in 2080, while also identifying the key actions and changes that we need to get there. It's a big ambition, and we've been working for a long time to bring it to life. Thank you for coming and supporting our vision. We are so happy to welcome all of our guests and delegates to Imagining 2080. We'll now kick off the programming of the forum by hearing from two inspiring women who are undoubtedly leading us toward a better future. At only 19 years of age, Autumn Peltier's journey for justice as an Indigenous rights and water activist has already made waves around the world. She captured the world's attention at the age of 12 at an Assembly of First Nations events when she admonished Prime Minister Trudeau for the choices he had made for her people. Peltier first spoke at the United Nations General Assembly at the age of 13. Among many accolades, she has received the Sovereign Medal of Exceptional Volunteerism from the Governor-General of Canada and the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. She spoke at the UN Secretary-General's Climate Action Summit in 2018 and 2019, and continues to travel internationally, speaking about Indigenous rights, inclusion, representation, and collaboration, all while inspiring the next generation with her voice. She has graced the front cover of Maclean's magazine and has been included in the Maclean's Power List of 50 Canadians who are changing how we think. Autumn has been a featured speaker at the World Economic Forum, sharing the stage with Greta Thunberg, and has been shortlisted for the International Children's Peace Prize 3 times. Last year, she was runner-up for this prize, which is awarded by the Nobel Peace Prize Committee. Her work and contributions were highlighted in a 2022 exhibition at the Canadian Museum of History in Ottawa. Also in that year, she received an honorary doctorate from Royal Roads University and was awarded the Daniel G. Hill Award from the Ontario Human Rights Commission and the Emerging Canadian Leaders Award from the Public Policy Forum. Autumn's documentary film, The Water Walker, was released on HBO Canada in 2021 and is used by many of Canada's school boards. We'll see the film shortly. And after the film, Autumn will be joined on stage by Habon Ali. A member of the Future of Canada Council, Habon Ali is a Schwarzman Scholar who recently returned to Canada after a year of studying global affairs at Tsinghua University in Beijing. She is a systems thinker and connector who has been recognized as one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women. Habon holds a Master of Science in Global Health from McMaster and graduated as valedictorian from the University of Toronto with an honors Bachelor of Science degree. She also advised Prime Minister Trudeau for more than 2 years while creating Canada's first national youth policy and developing the Canada Service Corps. So now let's watch Autumn's documentary, The Water Walker. Thank you.
Bojo, Masquagija Quandishnakas, Megeza Dodem, Wequam Kungdonjiba, Nimiswendan Nuimadewian. My name is Autumn Peltier. I'm 19 years old. I'm the Chief Water Commissioner for Anishinaabe Nation, and I'm also an Indigenous rights and water activist. I would like to acknowledge all the women today. May we continue to find great stages to use our voice and hearts. Please keep being you, and you too have a voice. My beginnings started with water rights, as many are aware. I started using my voice at 8 years old. That's only where I began. From stages to petitions to participation in amplifying policy, I continue to try and spread awareness and the importance of Indigenous collaboration in our futures. So here we are, exploring what a tomorrow could be. We're imagining 2080. People of the generation in front of me tell me how they used to talk about watching the TV show The Jetsons and seeing a future with cars flying in the air, fairy tales of us being even more lazy and having robots wait on us hand and foot. I mean, only 15 years ago, without asking Steve Jobs, did anyone in this room think we would be able to carry a camera, a wallet, a computer with internet, a music library, a photo album, a telephone, a stopwatch, and a flashlight, and whatever else, all in one pocket? Seriously. I mean, really, flying cars seem possible at this point. I bet if I asked my great-grandmother if she ever thought a phone would talk back to us, she would think I'm crazy. But what if the Flintstones were asked about a future 50 plus years ahead? What about Doc from Back to the Future? Surely 2 different perspectives with one common thread. The future is going to show up for me. The future is out of touch, let's dream it. But maybe let's ask ourselves what we want for ourselves, but also for someone else. And maybe that's a great starting point. Who is that someone else? Tomorrow is for us. Yes, but beyond that, the real future isn't for us. For me, it's for the generations coming behind us. What is a sustainable future 7 generations from now? When making decisions, are we keeping the next 7 generations in mind? Will our decisions of today bring good or poor sustainability for tomorrow's land and people? What will our energy, our waters, and our natural resources say if we don't respect one another and our land? While this may be an Indigenous principle, surely it can be explored collaboratively. I feel future generations behind us are headed towards difficult times. And what are we doing? If we could all be in the same room in 2080, will we be asking the same questions? If we don't act now, how much more damage will be done to Mother Earth and humanity? At this rate, let me pose this question: will we even have a future in 2080? My grandfather Stanley continues to provide teachings to me
Generational knowledge from him and our elders is not something you can find in a school, which is why my people continue to reference our elders. Our elders teach us. They are the true knowledge keepers. Stop for a second. Imagine knowledge being passed on without a Google search bar. Knowledge of how to live sustainably with one another and in harmony with the land. My grandfather always shares stories about 50 years ago, how different it was. Although his world was very different than today, he kept practicing traditions, and even today, while he shares his knowledge with me, nothing could ever be taken for granted in this world. Everything was used and respected as it was donated. Only 50 years later, a question he always ponders is, in that short amount of time, what is being given back for those behind us? What is a sustainable future? Is it flying cars, trips to space, and hands-free living, or utilizing knowledge from our ancestors and applying it collaboratively to the tools we have access to today, which we can continue to build a future that can provide more longevity and health on land that's meant to sustain us all? I do believe traditional Indigenous ways and modern ways can be fused together. They can be collaborative and supportive, and that's it. Indigenous collaboration to understand a future that is abundant and full of collaboration borrowed from a foundation of knowledge, keeping and sustainable learning. What did the youth have to say? Not just me, but youth at large. Long ago, I lost count of the amount of times I was passed over because I was just a kid. Kids have things to say too, and it's my belief that we give them the same spaces to contribute with their ideas and thoughts more often. There are so many youth-led movements, and too often they are set aside for an agenda for profit and greed. My advocacy may inspire others, but it also inspires me because I continue to, fortunately, use my voice in wider spaces with great individuals like all of you in this room tonight. I can only ever speak for myself. However, I do often pledge my space to the youth and their aspirations, as like I said earlier, it's their future. Younger girls in bigger spaces, young children being encouraged to use their voice. So many ask me about the future like I have a crystal ball. And while I'm encouraged by the questions, I'm honored to carry traditional knowledge from my Indigenous ancestors and elders today, and hope it could be used in bigger moments just like this one. Where imagining a future is one that includes Indigenous practice and sustainability for a richer tomorrow. I wondered what message I can deliver to thousands of fresh thinkers, and what stuck are three things to leave with you: collaboration, youth, and what if. I hope you leave tonight with something of action in your hearts. Ultimately, it is your generation, our generation, that have the opportunities to use our voice. Let's collaborate and let's work together. Let's push for a sustainable future. It's important we recognize the youth today and listen. It's these voices that will be here in the future. It's your voice that will be next. We cannot control what has already been done, but one thing we can control is the present and the decisions that we make from this point on. Lastly, in a room full of people, it only takes one person to implement change. What if that one person is you? Miigwech, thank you.
Thank you. It was really lovely to hear about 2080 for whom, you know? Is it the generations to come? Is it youth and our communities and what it will look like? So I'm really excited to dive a little bit deeper into what that means for us. Autumn, you come from a family of strong women, much like your aunt. I was raised by strong Black Muslim women. My mom is in the crowd. Hi, Hoyo. My aunts and my grandmothers, so I feel that deeply. These were individuals who understood the importance of community building and forging a path, even when there seemed to be none. Often the advocacy and activism in my family and communities were born out of not personal passion, but driven by the pursuit of basic needs, dignity, and respect. Could you share how the strong women in your family, such as your aunt, have influenced and shaped your journey in water advocacy and activism?
Well, I think I can start off that answer by kind of emphasizing how fortunate I was to be raised in a family that had such great women who were like able to share that type of knowledge and pass on the traditional knowledge from generations. And honestly, I really don't know the answer, but I'm just, again, very fortunate and very grateful that I was able to be raised by such amazing women. Yeah. And they've always been there from when I was a little girl, of course, my mom and my auntie. My Auntie Josephine plays a very large role in my advocacy, as she was my role model. She had done her work for about 16 years before I started doing mine. And I started to kind of get interested in like this kind of like advocacy because she started to get older, and it was kind of hard for me to watch her get older, and it became a lot harder for her to do her work. And that's kind of what inspired me to use my voice, because I thought about, well, like, who's going to carry on like this message? Who's going to talk about it when she's gone? Because at the time, there was very, very few people talking about Indigenous issues, let alone drinking water issues. And so that's kind of what my inspiration was. But I guess I'm just really grateful to be able to be like surrounded by such amazing women in my life.
I can feel the gratitude, and so many people pour into us to allow us to take up that leadership role, and you can tell that was cultivated by your loved ones and the people around you, so that's so beautiful. Being in the public eye long before fully understanding its challenges can be particularly tough, especially as a young, influential Indigenous woman. Your documentary sheds light on some of the bullying you faced due to your public profile. I can only imagine that your experiences within your community and with the wider public were quite distinct. How have you managed the media exposure in your personal life?
Well, as like a few parts of that were highlighted in my documentary, and it did get very difficult at times to do this work, surprisingly. That's one thing that did catch me a little off guard. But for me, it was a matter of like, what kind of role model will I be if I let negative things or people get to me? Because, I have children who are looking up to me who are like 5 years old, 6 years old. And so for me, that's kind of what helped me like kind of stay in the right path and stay in the right like headspace, like thinking about like the fact that I'm a mentor, I'm a role model, and like, it's important that a good role model kind of like shows those skills and strategies. So I tried my best to work through it, manage my mental health, surround myself with good people, and do good healthy activities, and that's kind of a big part of it. A huge part of it is always having family with me, and always, I have my sister here with me as well. She comes with me. And so, just having good people around me is what kind of kept me grounded.
That's really beautiful. And I asked you a question about how you manage something personally, and you turned that into pouring into the people around you. So that's really telling. Do you want to speak a bit to some of the mentorship that you do and why that's important to you?
Well, empowering youth has become a very large part of my advocacy. Because within the time frame that I have been doing my work, I've been doing this since I was 8 years old. I just recently turned 19, so that's a very large time frame. And within that time, I had realized and come to conclusion that it's the younger generations and it's the youth that have the most powerful voice. Yeah. Because across all stages and everywhere I have spoke, yes, everything that like everyone has to say is important, but anything that a youth or young person has said has been so much more powerful and at least had an impact on me. And so I always encourage youth to use their voice, because you generally wouldn't think a young person is going to stand up or speak up about world or political issues, and that's when something's wrong and something has to be done. We shouldn't have to be speaking about it, but when we are, it's so powerful. So that's why it's so important to listen to the youth and encourage young ones, whether that be your cousin, your niece, your nephew, your friend. Always just encouraging young people to use their voices is so important.
I agree. It's when the people who have the highest stake in the future and the outcomes of policy decisions are given a platform to share their piece. They can cut through a lot and share a really distinct and succinct message like we've seen you do. So it's really powerful. And when you think about Canada's future, we're all gathering here today to enter 3 days of thinking and brainstorming and solutioning. What do you consider some of the most pressing threats to the country as we head towards 2080?
Well, that thought brings me back to thinking about how my grandfather talked about when he was young. Because when he talks about when he was young, it's very different. The world sounds very different. He talks about how plastics didn't even exist, how he stored everything underground because it's cold throughout the year. And, the practices were so different compared to now. And he always emphasizes how much change, how much negative change has happened within that short amount of time. And at the rate we're going, if we don't act now and find solutions and collaborate and work together, I find it's probably going to go a little bit faster than it did the first time.
Yeah.
And so when I think of a future, it's kind of hard to have hope in this generation, given how much negative things happen in our world. But it's the youth that give me hope, and I feel that the young generations are very, their minds are very open, and that gives me a lot of hope, and I'm sure it does for a lot of other people. So I'm very confident in the younger generations.
It's our collaborations
Yes.
and ideas that will get us through. And I agree with you, some of the most pressing challenges of our time, whether it be conflict, climate change, access, justice, equity, whether it be resources or society, is it weighs heavy on our generation, and it's something heavy for us to carry. It's hard to think of 2080. So I personally have had the privilege of serving on the Prime Minister's Youth Council. I advised him for 2 years, and during that time, we engaged in many discussions and debates on policy solutions that hit close to home, such as gun violence, poverty, Islamophobia, anti-Black racism, and I've gained a deep understanding of the challenges involved within working within a system, and having the ear of some of the most influential figures in the country and the world, which is something that you're familiar with as well. How have you navigated the process of building movements, forming coalitions, engaging with high-level officials and leaders, all while sometimes working against political will and public opinion?
Well, it's definitely been a challenge, and within the amount of time that I have been doing my work, I've seen very little to no change, and that kind of relates back to the last question. That's what kind of gives me a little less hope than I should have. But it's really just a matter of collaborating with people and working together with non-Indigenous and Indigenous people, and understanding each other and just working together, because this is something that affects us all, not just Indigenous people, not just clean drinking water issues. Human rights is everyone. No matter how rich or poor we are, no matter what the color of our skin is, everyone needs to work together, because we all bleed the same blood.
That's very, very true. We all have a stake, and the faster we learn how to work together and see each other as human, we can create solutions that work for everybody and the world. So I truly believe that as well. And I want to know what keeps you motivated to do this work. So I know it can be quite heavy, and we've touched on that, but what keeps you going? And I know young people give you hope, but can you touch on some things that motivate you to do this work?
What keeps me going? A lot of things. Of course, one being the youth. My Auntie Josephine being the other aspect, and my family, and always having good support around me, and just kind of remembering why I'm doing what I'm doing, and how I'm trying to help my people in any way possible that I can, and giving up wouldn't necessarily be a good decision in my eyes, because if I give up, then I don't know, it's just it's like taking a risk. And if we don't talk about this and we don't continue this conversation, then exactly in 2080, will we even have a future? How much more worse will these situations get? It's been 10 years, again, and I'll emphasize that again, it's been 10 years that I'm doing this, and there's still really no government change or government policy that's been implemented in our communities. And it's just a constant fight of wanting to be heard and wanting to create change, but it's so hard. But what keeps me going, of course, again, is my family and my peers and my support that I have around me. And, again, remembering why I'm doing what I'm doing.
100%. To fight to be seen and to be heard, and for basic necessities is difficult, but I'm happy you have that community of support and that well of motivation that you draw from. I'm really curious to know how your perspective on change and what is possible for the future has evolved as you started your advocacy and activism journey. So from the beginning, when you were 15, on your 15th birthday, being at the UN, Friday's March for the Future to now. How has your perspective changed on what's possible, and what does that look like now?
Well, my perspective on what's possible is that anything is possible, because when my Auntie Josephine would always tell me, just do it. That was her little quote. Anytime you asked her something or her opinion or her perspective, she would always just say, just do it. Don't think about it. Don't put too much thought into it. Just do it. Because you never know what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
I really had no intention of being able to, be as heard as I have been. And I had no idea that I would be where I am today or doing what I'm doing today. And that was just from, doing what I felt like I needed to do in that moment and just doing it, just going for it. And I don't know, I always say that anybody can do this work. And it's definitely work that's meant for not just one person. That's why I always talk about collaboration, working together, because, it takes a lot more than one person to make change. So that's what's kind of kept me going, just kind of seeing where I ended up. And I was like, I had no idea that I would even be there, nor did I have an intention of being where I am. So that's fun. Anything is possible.
Yeah. If you put your mind to it and the energy that you have. Something that just quickly comes to mind as you shared that is there any moment that you're particularly proud of that you didn't think about entering this work, and what is that moment for you?
Well, I mean, there's been some pretty astounding moments.
I can imagine.
And I definitely feel like all of them are my proudest moments, and all of them are like a moment of great achievement for me, because when I started, Indigenous issues were barely talked about. There was very little literature on it, newspaper, any article on it. There was a very little amount. And if you go to look it up now, there's so much. There's like a lot you can read about. And so it went from like having no conversation about Indigenous issues to having large conversations about Indigenous issues, and like being able to bring my message to the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and these large stages in front of very important people. Is like, that's a really huge accomplishment for me, because it's like now we're talking about it, and like they weren't talked about before, so it feels amazing to know.
Yeah, it's massive. And from the ages of 15 to 19 is absolutely incredible. You've lived many lives, and I'm so excited to see where you go and how you continue to use this passion to create positive change. We need it. Speaking on behalf of everyone in the room. But I would really love to know some of the principles and values that guide the work that you do. What do you center your work on?
Passion, really. My passion is to help my people in any way possible. And I'm studying criminology right now, actually at the University of Ottawa. And that's also part of my passion, because throughout the amount of time that I've been doing this work, I've learned that it's not just drinking water issues that affect Indigenous people. It's so much more to it. And all these issues tie in together: racism and discrimination, missing a murdered Indigenous woman. And so I've kind of like broadened my understanding and my knowledge, and I do have, a large passion to help my people in, many different aspects. So.
And congratulations on starting at the university. It's midterm week. I can't imagine being in first year, midterm week, and taking time out of that stressful schedule to be here with us. So we're really, really grateful, and I think it's just a testament to your character and your passion and dedication to this work. I'm curious how you see your education informing your career, but your ability to support your communities as well.
Yeah, well, I do have very strong passion for the subject of missing a murdered Indigenous woman. It is something that has affected my family personally, and so I do kind of have a little bit of a personal passion rooting from that. But just in general, for Indigenous people, it's like we're all related, and it's like we're all brothers and sisters, and that's not even just missing a murdered Indigenous woman. That applies to everyone is missing a murdered Indigenous people, and it's learning about Indigenous issues, and then learning about the criminal justice system, the injustices, the inequality. There's so many aspects to talk about. There's so many things to cover, but I've kind of rooted to that side of it and wanting to help my people that are negatively impacted by the justice system.
Yeah.
So it's kind of where I'm aiming towards.
Yeah, you're right. It's all interconnected, and as is our justice and liberation. And I think dedicating your life to navigating that oppression and fighting that is really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to make a pivot to water. So Canada stands out as a country rich in freshwater resources. Despite having less than 1% of the world's population, Canadian rivers provide almost 9% of the planet's renewable water supply. Water scarcity is increasingly recognized as a grand challenge for our future, with the potential to spark security and geopolitical tensions worldwide. How do you see Canada's role in addressing water scarcity as we look ahead to 2080?
Well, that's definitely a conversation, because in March, I think, of 2022, Justin Trudeau's Liberal government had promised that all boil water advisories would be resolved by March of 22, I think the date is. And of course they were not resolved. Yeah. And so given that Indigenous people and the Canadian government have a very long, a very dark history, it's kind of hard when it comes to it's a difficult conversation when it comes to creating change and implementing that within government and policy. And
I understand. It's hard to think of the future when we're barely progressing on where we need to be right now. And what are your hopes and visions for how our country can contribute to not only water sustainability at home, but on the global stage as well as seeking to advance Indigenous water rights and the environment?
Well, I feel like my answer for that would be following through with promises. Because as mentioned with the last question, there was a very large promise that was made. And for that to be broken, that contributes to the negative view that Indigenous people have on the Canadian government. And so following through with promises, or at least making promises that are reasonable, is a step forward to kind of dealing with that. And another part of that is I mentioned a couple times how I've been doing this for 10 years. And my Auntie Josephine died doing her work. And often, even when talking about 2080, it's scary to think that 10 years has gone by and very little change has happened. And sometimes, I feel well, am I gonna be 80 years old and I'm still talking about the same thing I was talking about when I was 8?
Yeah.
And it's scary to think about 2080, to be honest, because our future is it's a little scary, at the rate we're going.
Yeah. And it's at 8 to 80, and we want to be focusing on different things, and this is what you've sort of dedicated yourself to, which is really nice, but I understand that. And following through on promises, trust in our institutions and our governments to hear us, to serve all Canadians, regardless of what communities that we come from, is really important. So thank you for bringing that up. That is something that's definitely a barrier to progress as we look forward to the future and even currently. So we know within Indigenous communities, there are numerous pressing challenges that exist, whether it be high suicide rates amongst Indigenous youth, the unrealized potential of our youth, the challenges like insufficient access to clean water, healthcare disparities, housing shortages, educational inequities, economic disparities, cultural preservation, environmental concerns, and justice-related obstacles, to name a few. I know you know this better than I do, but as someone who's deeply engaged in advocating for a better Canada or country, what are your hopes for the future, especially regarding some of these issues?
Well, I do hope that there is change, and I hope that there is a positive outcome of all the hard work myself and many others have put in to create change within Canada. And I hope I'm not talking about the same thing, and I hope that everyone is not talking about the same things that we were talking about, because it's honestly kind of hard to have hope in our generation, especially for our future. Not even just in Canada. There's a lot of people from around the world probably don't have hope for our future.
And so many people have sacrificed their youth, their life, as you mentioned, your aunt, dedicating it to this work. So it's really important. That's a perspective that needs to be heard.
Yes.
Describe in your ideal world, if everything was to be in the way that you envision it in the future, describe a great day in 2080. Whose day is it? Tell us about what they do, say, think, or feel throughout the day. What would that look like?
Honestly, a good day in my opinion, in 2080 would be being able to see Indigenous people in power,
Yeah.
in powerful positions, and in like the House of Commons or the parliamentary cabinet. I feel like in my eyes that would be amazing to see Indigenous people representing a country that we originate from.
No, that makes sense. I think you mentioned a lot the fight to be seen, heard, and to see change occur as well. So I understand that your view of representation and Indigenous people being empowered to able to create that change in here and support the community, that makes a lot of sense. So we're here for 3 days. We're thinking, we're brainstorming, we're thinking about the future. As you know, this forum is all about imagining possible futures of Canada and what the country can look like in 2080. All of the delegates that are here have joined us from across the country. What message do you want to share with them, and what do you hope these conversations focus on, and what do you would suggest that we dig a little deeper into?
Well, I think the message that I will leave today is that we should think about ways, like when everyone leaves here, I feel thinking about ways that we can not just talk about these issues, but actually create change and like implement solutions. Because, it's one thing to just talk about it, but it's super important to actually take the action into like trying to create that change. And like thinking about how you in your own daily life can kind of like, integrate those things into your daily life, like making changes within yourself.
Yeah.
And, again, of course, whether you have like a niece, a nephew, a cousin, a friend, and like empowering youth to use their voices, making them letting and making them feel heard. And I think that would be it. And like if you have any ideas or any inspirations, just do it.
I like that. I'm going to steal that tagline. Just do it. It's not even Nike. It's from Auntie Josephine, and I'm going to put it on the wall. But I hear you, and not just talking about these issues, walking the walk, and integrating solutions into our work. We have a lot of powerful decision makers, people who are in the nonprofit, public, private sector, students, our leaders and our future leaders in this crowd. So that is a very important message. I think we do have some time to take about 5 minutes to take questions from the audience. So we will do that. We have a floating mic. Not a ghost. We have an incredible team. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. Yeah. I can't even see the back.
Hello. Hello from back here. You can hear me. Hello. Thank you very much for the film and all of the work that you're doing. I have a question in relation to the water trading. So water being traded on the stock market as of December 2020. And I'm just wondering if you have any reflections on that, or if you have any sort of insights. It seems like it's something that people aren't talking about.
I don't know if you heard that.
I did hear it, but I haven't done or heard a lot on that issue, and I feel to answer that question, I would prefer to kind of like know a bit more context on that.
Yeah.
But
Maybe like selling water as like a commodity, as opposed to like something people have the right to. Do you have a
if you think about not 50 years ago, but if you think about like the generations from when like my grandfather was young, water wasn't for sale. And it's a basic human right, and I honestly don't really believe that water should be for sale, because I don't believe that it's for profit. It's a basic human right. Everyone needs it to survive, whether that be an insect, a plant, or a human being.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all would not be here if it wasn't for water. We literally lived in our mother's water for 9 months before we like arrived in the physical world. And so it's just, in my personal opinion, water shouldn't be for profit or for sale.
I guess we'll take the last one.
Thank you so much, Autumn. Very inspiring presentation and documentary. I think being a mentor, and you've had a mentor yourself with your aunt, and now you're a mentor for the next generation. And part of being a good mentor, I think for me, has always been to walk the walk. So can you share with us some of the personal things that you've done in your life that would reflect your advocacy for water and sustainability?
Well, things that I've done to reflect my advocacy. I mean, really just like spreading the message and my advocacy whenever I can, like whether that be in like conversations with my peers and my friends, family, people I just meet. Just talking about this all the time is kind of like important to me. I just feel like it should be a part of like a lot of conversations, and talking about it with my family is actually one of my favorite things because, it gives me like an opportunity to like comfortably in a safe space brainstorm my ideas. And I just, talking about it with family is kind of how I guess, reflect it.
Reflection is so important. How are we for time? One more? Okay, we have one more. Thank you.
Sega Autumn. I think we met one other time, so happy to see you again. But we do very, very similar work, and we are neighboring communities. And through the Dish with One Spoon, we are tied to a treaty. And I was wondering, and this kind of flows from the first question, that water shouldn't be for sale. And so I've been fighting against Nestle for quite a while now, and advocating for clean water within Six Nations, because there's a lot of homes in Six Nations that have no clean running water. And I was just wondering if you'd be open to connecting and working together.
Yeah, definitely.
For this, against Nestle or whatever we form. But I think it would be a great alliance with our nations coming together.
I totally agree. And I'm very open to collaborating with people, especially when we share the same passion, same message.
Oh, that's a powerful connection to happen spontaneously in the room. We'll be following that. That's so beautiful. Well, I guess thank you, everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, Autumn, for your insights and for sharing more about your visions of Canada in 2080. And thank you, Habon, for facilitating such an enlightening conversation. The two of them gave us so much to think about, but you've also hopefully been inspired, as I have been, about what our future can be, what it should be, and what we need to do to get it there. It's leadership like Habon and Autumn's that will be so important for the future, and it's that kind of leadership that we're hoping to foster with Wilson College, to help young people develop the ethical grounding and societal awareness to become wise, civic, and community leaders. It's been a privilege to bring Red Wilson's vision to life. We see Wilson College as a continuation of the work begun by the Future of Canada Project, work that's vital to our country's future. And now just some logistical details about the rest of the evening and tomorrow. So tomorrow morning, Imagine 2080 will begin its first full day of programming at the David Braley Health Center in downtown Hamilton. There'll be breakfast for all of the delegates starting at 8:30, and then the program will kick off at 9:30. We look forward to seeing all of the delegates there as we explore possibilities for Canada in 2080. But before you go home, please join me for a reception and our speakers, kindly supported by Wilson College. Let's celebrate the launch of the forum and the ongoing work of the Future of Canada project as part of Wilson College. Good night. Thank you.